tell me a little bit about yourself. What's your background in? What are you doing on your day-to-day today?
Well, I'm Krish. I'm the founder and CEO of No. We are a super app for frontline teams. I mean, there's enough chaos that happens on the day-to-day on the front lines. So we thought people should have something that basically eliminates all the day-to-day chaos and gives you something that you can run your teams on autopilot.
So what's that look like for an operator?
Yeah. So essentially, imagine a new staff joins your unit. You give them our app, and then the app essentially becomes like a second brain. So you can train them when they join your company, and then you can assign tasks to them, make sure that all the day-to-day is codified so that essentially the app drives day-to-day behavior. And also then alerts you, notifies you, does all the things so that you don't have to sit there, diving into the minutia. Essentially drives a lot of that behaviors for you. So it keeps everybody happy so that you're not tearing your head apart every day. Yeah, as much as you can, right?
Right. Yeah. So where'd the idea come from? Like what was how'd this become what it is now?
I think it came from the fact that there's a wave of digitization happening in industries which previously were not that digitized, right? And particularly a workforce which previously did not have a lot of technology in their hands. Like when I was working in consulting or in other industries before, I had more than enough technology day to day. And then you start noticing that whether it's restaurants or retail, or when an Uber launched and you saw riders having an app in their hands, there was now a possibility to transform industries which previously, I'll be lying if I said there was this nirvana saying I knew I was going to launch No at that point in time. We started with the premise that this is workforce that really needed help, that we could help, and then just spent a lot of time with our customers. So we actually started off building our training functionality, and then driven by customer requests, we then launched into all the other things that we do today to become this super app that is No.
So tell me about your customers. Like, what do they come to you usually for? Is there a primary need?
It varies actually from customer to customer, but generally people reach out to us once they've got a little bit of scale and traditional processes are not necessarily working anymore. So if you've got 1 unit, 2 units kind of thing, then you can sort of manage with maybe in the space that we do, you can sort of manage ad hoc or with manual processes or, clipboards and things like that. But then once you've got multi-units and you're scaling, then this becomes really, really difficult. And that's when people say, hang on a minute, there should be a better way than text messaging people or doing things on a clipboard and then taking photo of it and sending it across on text and things like that. And so that's when people start looking for solutions. I don't want to jump the gun if you want to talk about this later, but essentially people are also getting a bit, I don't want to say tired, but a little bit like, man, there's so much technology out there now. There's a bit of fatigue. Yeah. So then people are looking more for solutions which maybe stitch together 3 or 4 things together, saves you cost, and at the same time, you don't have to train your staff on 6 different things. And I think people are getting a bit of SaaS fatigue. And so that's something that I think as an industry, we're going to have to solve in the next 2 years anyway. Yeah, I remember one of our clients really joking with me and saying, hey, dude, I thought this whole technology thing was supposed to improve my life, but now I'm paying X dollars to a point of sale, Y dollars to something else, Z dollars to something else. Nothing talks to each other. And this has now made my life more complicated in some ways. So I think people are also looking for a bit for simplicity. But it's very natural in most industries when they go through this digitization wave. I think there's always a first wave where there's lots of things people are trying to do independently. And I think then things start to consolidate before they again start to innovate for that next wave, right? So I think it's very natural that this is exactly what happens. But I think we're in that transition phase, I think. Maybe not immediately, but in the next 2-3 years, this is a problem that we'll all have to solve as solution providers for the industry.
That solution to the problem looks like is that more vendors working together as partners, trying to integrate so that it's more seamless for the end users and the restaurants. Is that a wave of vendors not existing anymore? So there's less options. How does it get clearer and easier for the operators?
Sure. No, hopefully that last part doesn't happen, right? So you want everybody to do a good job and everybody to have a life. We're all supporting our team members and our clients, and you want everybody to do well. Obviously, that goes without saying. But I think what's likely to happen is a few things, right? So one is, I think integrations are going to be big so that things can talk to each other much better than they do today. That's number one. And I think the second thing is there's definitely going to be a consolidation, whether it's M&A activity. You can already see that happening in the point of sale space, Revel getting bought up and a few others, going through that transactions as well. So that's definitely going to happen. And then the thing that the buzzword, whether you like it or not, of AI, is going to make it easier for some of these data to talk to each other as well. And I think data is going to be really big. Everybody says that data is the next oil, or people have been saying that for a long, long time. But I do think that this is going to be really big, and that's where the integrations will come into play. Because I don't want my customer data sitting in some CRM somewhere, my delivery data sitting somewhere else, my employee data sitting somewhere else. Now, nobody will want to put everything in one place, because then there's just almost too much power to that one person. But at least people should be able to talk to each other so that these things become easy rather than walled gardens.
One of the conversations I was having with partner yesterday was just talking about kind of how things get siloed. They thought the restaurant tech industry, especially in the multi-unit groups, has gotten to where a lot of the technology is a little bit too siloed, right? And now that's causing a new set of problems for operators because, HR has its package, ops has its package. The markets have to communicate better and the vendors have to communicate better.
How is the magic question, right? So we don't know who's sort of going to lead the way, or because there are some incentives to not to talk to each other, right? In certain, you can already see that.
We're friendly and partners with payroll companies, with POSs, and half of them also perceive us as a competitor because there's a small piece that overlaps. So I live this world.
There's no avoiding that. But I think the how needs to be more defined. I don't think there's an easy answer today, but we're not going to get away from needing to solve that problem for sure.
I think everyone I talk to, whether it's a operator or on the vendor side, all agrees, hey, all of the vendors need to integrate. They need to talk better. Like, I don't think anyone would disagree with it. It's just how do we make that happen, especially with the 800-pound gorilla vendors, right? Because that's always hard as the partner.
So in our case, for example, we have APIs for everything. So you can push data into Know, you can pull data out of Know. We can integrate with BI systems. So if you have a single BI system, you want to see revenue data, you want to see, staff data, you want to see operational data, you can see all of that as well. That's the technology answer, which is, yes, you can have APIs. Yes, you can have ways in which you can integrate data. And then there's the business answer, right? Are you frenemies? How much of this do I want to control myself? I think it's actually easier on the technology front. It's harder on the business front. So we do need, the 800-pound gorillas. Yes, in some sense, they have to lead the way. Maybe marketplaces alone is not the answer, because today that's the immediate answer, right? It is we create this marketplace and you just throw your app and then that's it. But I'm not sure that's alone will do the job.
More some of those technology trailblazer roots are really demanding this more loudly.
Yeah.
And I think if they keep persistently saying, I won't work with you unless you are open to integrating with the rest of my tech stack, that the industry will shift.
Yeah, there was a beautiful panel here on build versus buy.
That was so
right?
great.
That was an awesome panel. And I think, obviously, the answer to always is somewhere in the middle. It's not all buy or all build, for sure. But I think the really large groups, if you heard in the panel, one of the reasons they go towards the build versus buy is because they see that they have this problem where they're unable to get things to talk to each other. They want to get some competitive advantage, maybe with their data, or they want to build things which give them an edge over other players. So in some sense, we'll shoot ourselves in the foot that people will start building more stuff rather than buying. Obviously, we want people to buy if we don't talk to each other, right? So you're going to wake up 3 years from now and say, man, everybody's building their own stuff. Well, it's because you guys didn't sort of do a good job back into each other, right?
An alternative, man.
Exactly. And so obviously we don't want to be in that boat, right?
Yeah, that was a great panel. Joanna's amazing. It was so fun to get to see her
It was.
moderate that panel.
Yeah, and we had a diversity of opinion. Diversity of sizes, right? So we had a 10-unit Brooklyn dumpling shop, and then you had Papa John's, right? So you had the whole diversity. So you got views from what a 10-unit person thinks, and obviously the person who has thousands of locations thinks.
It was really cool getting to see Sarika, who I haven't seen speak before, and hearing her insights. She's so in touch with the unit level need, and that's so rare for a brand that size.
Absolutely. And she was quite deep into the technology, right? So that was great. And then also seeing a 400-unit player still in the sort of buy side of the camp was awesome, right? Because that's what we want. We want more people at scale also, because the economics obviously for vendors is better as the unit sizes grow, right? So yeah, so that was nice. That was a great panel.
Was that your favorite session? Did you have another session that you thought was awesome?
Several of the smaller panels, which were very interesting as well. But I think on the grand stage or the main stage, I think that was my favorite panel. That was awesome.
If someone wanted to learn more about Know, if they wanted to know whether they were a good fit for Know, or just reach out and chat with you, because you know a lot about a lot of things, how should they get in touch?
Yeah, I mean, it's very easy. Our domain is getnoapp.com. That's KNOW, getnoapp.com. And I love talking with people. So, my wife says I can't shut up. So that's one of the faults that I have. So anybody can reach out. I'm Krish, Krish, at getnoapp.com. Anybody can reach out. I would love to talk to people, vendors, partners, clients, anybody. Because I do think that obviously we all need to talk to each other and we'd love to help in whichever way we can.
I'm going to ask one final question. What do you think is the next biggest trend that nobody's paying attention to that we should be paying attention to on the vendor side for restaurants, FTEC?
I think, I don't know if nobody's paying attention to, but I think it's one of these big gaping holes that somebody has to solve, right? Is this whole third-party delivery, the economics of that, both from, to be honest, from the last mile guy side as well and the restaurant side. There's no simple solution. There are various people trying to solve that, but that huge unsolved problem, I think. And I can see the difference itself. Like, when I travel a ton, but when you're in Dallas, you see the economics of, let's say, an Uber Eats or a DoorDash, and when you order food, I'm talking purely on the food side, not the ride-hailing side. And you go to San Francisco, and then you see how that economics works, and it's so different. The company is the same. So that's one. Also, on the AI hype cycle thing, I think there is definitely a ton of hype, but I think that there are some huge benefits with the Joya's Delhi team. That was another amazing panel that was in. They spoke about how they, in their day-to-day, just use ChatGPT and things like that, right? And that was really awesome. And I think they're probably on the forefront of thinking about that as operators. But I think more of us have to crystallize how this can genuinely benefit people, right? Rather than just like, I'm going to use a prompt to create some training, or I'm going to do something like that. Yeah, okay, that may be helpful. But I think the holy grail of how will it move the needle is something that we haven't seen yet. But I definitely think if in 12, 18 months, there's going to be a couple of home runs in this space, and that's unavoidable.
What I've seen with other technology trends, I think is also going to happen here, where we've got the operators who know intimately what they need help with. And then we've got the technologists who know intimately how to make that happen. And they're talking now, but they're not understanding yet, if that makes sense.
No.
So they're communicating, and once we can get to the point where they're speaking the same language, I think we're just a couple of months away from, and I think some vendors and operators are already at that stage. I think we're going to see an explosion of use cases, well-defined solutions that are meeting those use cases.
Exactly, because usually when new trends come, and especially from the technologist perspective, you're speaking the language of tech, right? And you're very excited about, wow, this model can do X, or, this tool can do Y kind of thing. When you show it to customers, often then they'll go, wait a minute, this is a P5 for me. This is not my P0 problem. I have so many other P0 problems. But on the flip side of it, if let's say an operator who may not be that tech forward, then you may be finding it very hard to articulate it in a way where most technologists probably can help you solve it, right? But I think, the savvy ones who can bridge that gap will crack this first, right? And then the rest will follow. But you're right. We are close. We are very, very close.
Yeah. There's people in the restaurant technology space who I call connectors. They're not really a technologist. Sometimes they are. They're not really an operator. Sometimes they are. But their superpower that they're bringing into the space is it's just connecting people need to be talking about a specific thing. And suddenly there's a whole new micro product that's meeting a very urgent need for the industry that these guys were talking past each other about. It was great to see.
That's brilliant. You're going to flood his LinkedIn once this thing goes out.
But those connectors are critical for that, because there is a language now between us.
Completely agree. Completely agree. And the translation is very, very key. Taking problems, expressing them in a way that's solvable, because you can only, the famous thing, right? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So similarly, you can't be like, how do I solve using AI? It's not that simple. Right. And similarly, you can't say, how do I solve this really crazy, ginormous problem? Again, it's not that easy. Right. So we have to figure out what that first bite is, that second bite is, that third bite is, and create a pipeline so that then we can solve the real problems that people have, rather than the problems that generally get technologists excited, which we will be completely disconnected from reality. A lot of this is you overthink many of these things, right? So you often need just a elegant, simple solution, because we're also in an industry which has a high amount of labor churn, for example. Staff churns a lot. Finding good people is hard. So the more complex you make the solution, it can solve something really wonderful, but if it's complex, nobody will use it, right? You can't keep retraining people every couple of months on some solution, right? So something needs to be super simple and deliver impacts. Today, somebody was using a phrase utility. It needs to deliver utility, right? And without that, you can build the most beautiful, it'd be like Segway, no? You had a Segway, didn't go anywhere because you couldn't climb stairs. It could be a beautiful thing and only cops use it, or in airports or something. Even that's gone now. But yeah. No, I think you touched on all the key things. I think more collaboration, certainly being able to find common solutions like this without creating sort of niches and silos is really, really important. I don't mean just in technology. I mean just as an organization or just as a community. That'd be great. And events like this are amazing. I wouldn't have met you otherwise. So that's wonderful. Yeah, we just have to keep doing this.